Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my December 2024 bullet journal setup. I'm super excited to do this setup with you guys today because this is the last setup of the year. It's crazy to think that we've already done 12 bullet journal themes in 2024, and actually this marks the end of my 5th year of bullet journaling. So this is my 60th bullet journal theme ever that I've done in my own journals, and that's actually crazy to think about that I've done 60 of these setups over the past couple of years. Like, that's crazy, that's insane, but we're here, we're doing it. And I will say that this setup that we're doing today is actually going to be quite similar to my last December bullet journal setup, because if you guys were here last year and you saw that setup, you would kind of recognize a similar layout that I'm doing in this particular spread. I don't know, something about that setup in 2023 really hit for me. If you guys watched my video about my top 10 bullet journal themes of all time, the one from last December was in that list, and I stand by that. I really loved the coziness but also the winter vibes in that setup. I realize I'm talking a lot about last year's setup, so I will stop, but I just want to say that, like, if this looks familiar, it's because I took a lot of inspiration from my past self. For this year, for my December bullet journal setup, I'm drawing a chapel, kind of like how you might go to a Christmas Eve service, you know, on Christmas Eve, and go to the church and it's warm and maybe it's a white Christmas, so there's snow on the ground. Like, this is my ideal. I do go to church and I do especially go on Christmas Eve. However, I do not have snow because I live in Texas, and so I don't think we've had a white Christmas, knock on wood, since like before I was born. However, there's always hoping, right? So at least I can get the vibes through my bullet journal, and that's why I wanted to draw this like really cozy little chapel with like warm light coming from inside, and then there are like little lanterns hanging in like the dead trees outside, but like, you know, they're dead in an aesthetic wintry way. And then I'm gonna have a big curved background where I'm gonna draw the sky. Like I said, very similar to last year, and I'll put a picture here actually of last year's setup so you can kind of see the comparison. Last year I did a very similar like curved shape with the calendar on the left, and then there's the house in the woods with blue sky. I do think that this setup is distinctively different, but I do think I pulled the elements that I liked from December of last year to make this setup, and I do recommend that actually. I'm not really ashamed of it because I think it's important when you bullet journal. It helps you to find your style when you repeat things and when you know that you like something because you do it over and over again. And so taking inspiration from my past self is definitely not a crime. Like, if I enjoy something and I like how it looks, I'm gonna do it again because I know that I will like it again the second time, you know? So that's just kind of the method that I went with this. I mean, if we counted out of all of the 60 themes that I've ever done, how many themes I've drawn clouds in, like, I bet you there'd be a good 20% of them have this exact same cloud doodle everywhere. It's just easy, you know? And like sparkles or snow to kind of fill up a spread, like, it's easy, it works, and so I always do it, and that's totally okay. So I don't know, if you're feeling a little stumped for a theme idea, I'd recommend going back and looking at your old bullet journals if you have any and seeing what you like about each of the spreads and kind of pulling out what you can use for a future bullet journal theme. It definitely worked for me this time. But I will say also that my December theme last year was, again, blue and green, but also had some red highlights, and I feel like everything was a little bit more saturated. This bullet journal theme for this year is a little bit more pastel, and my sister would love me for this because I really don't use pastels very often. Usually, even if I use, like, you know, lighter colors, it's still very saturated, but for this theme, I'm really just using a lot of beiges and different shades of beige to color in the chapel. I'm going to use a little bit of light yellow to emphasize like the warm lighting and the lanterns and the trees, some brown, you know, for the trees and the wood door, and then the background is like a dusty dark bluish color. And not only are these colors, you know, like a pastel Christmas wintry aesthetic that I really like, and I think it makes it different from last year where I used more saturated blues and reds, but also this is ironically very, very similar to my color palette for November, like last month. Last month I did a scrapbooking theme, so it is a very different concept. However, the colors tended to be very similar. I actually used 2 of the exact same pens that I did for last month, so I don't know. It may not seem too original, but that's totally okay, and I do like how it turned out, and I'm very happy with it. I think it's cozy, I think it's warm, but it's also pastel, cute, winter, all of the fun adjectives that you can think of, and I am really happy with it, so I hope you guys enjoy how it turns out. So I have good news and bad news. Let's do bad news first. I accidentally, while I was filming, forgot to press record. So there's like 20 minutes of footage that I just don't have of me coloring in, I think, the chapel and maybe the trees, I think. That's it though. So not a huge deal, but it is unfortunate. But good news, okay, silver lining. My undated bullet journal that I sell on my online shop is going on sale. It's actually been on sale for a couple days now. As the time that you're seeing this is a Black Friday sale, but until December 2nd or through December 2nd at 11:59 p.m. my undated bullet journal is 30% off on my website if you use the code Black Friday at checkout. So if you're not aware, this is a completely pre-designed bullet journal that is perfect for you if you don't have much time to make your own art, but you can definitely color it in, personalize it to whatever you need. There are a bunch of blank spreads in here, 12 months of completely undated setups, and I sell it on my shop, themingostudio.com. So I'll have the information linked in the description box below if you want to go check her out. But like I said, only a couple more days left for this to be on sale. And then after that, it's still available, but it's just not 30% off. So this would be a great gift for yourself for Christmas if you want to start a new journal for the new year, or it can make a great present for a loved one for the holidays, you know, go check her out. So like I said, themingostudio.com, use code Black Friday for 30% off at checkout. And I really do appreciate it if you buy the journal. It does support me and I love you guys so much. So with that being said, let's get back into the video. Alright, so like I said, we unfortunately did miss a lot of the coloring process here because I unfortunately thought I pressed record. I apparently didn't, and I had about 20 minutes of coloring before I realized that my camera was off. So that was a problem. But yeah, so I'll just talk you through my process of coloring, even though it already has happened. But basically I used a very light beige. And by the way, I'll color a chapel on the second spread as well, so you'll also be able to see this happen again. So you're not really missing anything, but just to kind of explain, I used a light beige for basically all of the outside of the building. I don't know if this is brick, stucco, whatever the chapel is actually made out of. I did try to add some texture with line art. You can see a little bit of cross hatching to add some shadows in the walls and stuff, just to make it so it's not like a flat slate. I want to add, you know, texture to everything, make it look a little bit more realistic, even though this is a very cartoony drawing. But after doing the base layer of beige, I went back with a second layer of that same exact color to add some shadows, and then I went with a slightly darker beige to add even more shadows, specifically under like where the roof hangs over, where the snow-covered roofs hang over, maybe like next to a pole, or if there's depth. Like for example, where the front door is of this chapel, I'm imagining it's a little bit set back from the front face of the building because there are stairs leading up to the front door, if that makes sense. So I tried to make sure that little square around the door was shadowed to kind of emphasize the fact that it's pushed back a little bit in depth, but very minor things, you know. And whenever you're drawing shadows, I always just imagine like if the sun is coming from the top, where would the shadows be? It would be under things that cover other things. You know what I'm talking about? So just very simple, light, and thinking about that whenever you are coloring. And I also used, like I said, a dark blue for the background. I like that it looks like a very cozy night. I mean, the blue isn't even that dark, but I think the contrast between the dark blue and then the white of the snow and the light color of the chapel makes it seem darker than it actually is. So while it is still very pastel, it still gives that night effect, which is great because like 11 o'clock Christmas Eve service and then coming out of the service and it's like Christmas morning, or I guess Christmas night because it's like midnight, but like the vibes of like it being Christmas as you're walking out of a church and like Silent Night is playing, like you cannot compete with that. You absolutely cannot. Like Christmas is, I've said this multiple times on my channel before, Christmas is an emotional time for me, especially in recent years, and I just cannot wait till Christmas Eve this year. Get to go to church, get our little Christmas Eve sermon, walk outside. Like the vibes are going to be immaculate, and that is what I'm trying to convey in this setup. So I hope the vibes are coming through the screen to you guys. On the left here I have a calendar spread, kind of similar again to last December. I need to stop mentioning it, to be honest. Like y'all get the picture, but basically it's just a very simple grid. I only have 1 week of classes in December and then it's exam season and then I'm off. So I really don't have much to plan as far as what to do this month. It's basically just study for tests and then move back home for the winter. So very simple things. I don't need a huge calendar for that, but I am, you know, making space for some planning if it's necessary. And I tried to continue the art from the right spread onto the left side of the spread. Like there is piles of snow under the calendar as if it is resting in the snow, similarly to how the chapel is resting in the snow on the right. There are clouds, of course, that kind of continue from the right side of the spread, continue it over, and then the snow falling everywhere. I like to do this and almost like embed my quote productivity parts of a spread, like a calendar or a tracker or something like that I'm going to use for organization. I like to combine those elements with the art to make everything seem more cohesive and put together, rather than having just a boring calendar on the left and then art on the right. I mean, if that works for you, that works for you, but I just like the idea of mixing them together when possible. And so using smaller motifs from the drawings, like the clouds, the snow, the snowflakes falling, that kind of thing, are very simple ways to carry the design over and make the entire spread look cohesive, even though there is going to be some planning happening on the left side, if that makes any sense. So whenever you're making your own bullet journal, if you like this technique, try to find ways you can pull small elements from your artwork into the calendar spread or into the tracker spread, into the weekly spreads, and just kind of make everything seem very cohesive and put together. So since this is the last bullet journal setup of 2024, I wanted to do a little bit of reflecting on how this year went. I will say, as far as my channel, it's been kind of an interesting year because this year I started a second channel, my book channel called Sophie Joe, and I have really been enjoying making content over there, but of course my attention has been kind of split in two now that I have two different channels that I'm working on. And because I'm in college and I'm, working on a lot of things at once, I'm, going to classes, going to club meetings, I'm, have other things that I also need to be doing besides, creating content and stuff. It has caused me to kind of rethink my posting schedule and how I'm going to be able to, keep up with creating content on multiple channels and stuff. I don't know if you guys have noticed, I think I brought this up actually in my November bullet journal setup, but I actually stopped posting short form content throughout the month of December, mostly. And then I realized that it was causing a drop in views on YouTube. I knew it was going to cause a drop in views of TikTok and Instagram because if I'm not posting short form content over there, I'm not posting anything. But that was okay for me because honestly, I'm getting so tired of those platforms. Like, I just could not care any less about them right now, and the algorithm and all this stuff. It's just like not a priority for me at the minute, but my baby is YouTube and will always be YouTube. I just love creating long form videos over here. And so whenever I saw that my views were dropping a little bit because I wasn't creating shorts as well, it was very disappointing. So all that to say, I started posting a couple more shorts like last week or something, but after spending a couple weeks not creating any shorts and then having to get back into creating them again last week, like just 1 week of it just reminded me how much I just don't like making them. And this is not like supposed to be like, a pity part of the video or like a plea for help or anything. Like, I'm totally fine, don't you worry about me, but like I'm just trying to be honest with y'all and share my creative process. And right now my creative process just does not involve shorts. Like, I just don't enjoy having to go through the process of like once I finish making a video for YouTube, having to go and create extra videos where I'm like showing my bullet journal again in different formats and have to edit those videos and then put them on 3 different platforms, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Like, it's just so much to keep track of, and I just don't have a passion for it right now. I'd like to say anymore. I'm not sure if that's like a forever thing, but just like right now I don't. And so to be honest, like I don't think I'm gonna be posting shorts anymore. Like I don't want to say forever, but like I wouldn't be expecting any shorts in the new year from me or like for the next couple of months. It's just like not something that I have any interest, any time for, any passion for to do. And maybe in the future, if I get back into it, I will tell you guys about that. We'll kind of ebb and flow with my content creating process. But right now where I'm at, I'm just doing too much right now, and I just could not care any less about short form media to create anymore. But we'll definitely continue to see me with long form media on YouTube. I have been thinking of ways to maybe change my posting schedule a little bit, because again, 2 different channels is kind of a lot to deal with, but I have not made any like firm plans on that. So I'll just let you know whenever that does happen. If it does happen, again, everything's kind of in the air right now as far as my YouTube channel goes. But I do want to keep you guys updated on what I've been, thinking content wise. And as always, if you do want to get more content from me, I do post every Thursday on my book channel. So if you guys do like reading and you want to hear my book recommendations, reading vlogs, things like that, my book channel is Sophie Joe. And again, I'm posting weekly over there. So go check it out if you're interested. All right, I will stop ranting about the content creating process. So we are back in the bullet journal, and this is the second spread. To be honest, I only did 2 spreads this setup because I just didn't have time in the day to add a third one and make a weekly spread. I just didn't really feel like doing it. So only 2 spreads today, but hopefully that is enough. But this left spread is going to be a tracker spread, and honestly, I'm obsessed with the layout of this spread. I think it's kind of interesting. So what I did differently than usual, which isn't much, but basically for the expenses tracker, I just took out the left column. So usually for an expenses tracker, I'll do date, date, description of expense, and then amount, right? Well, sometimes I'll like combine different expenses over a course of a couple days and put them on one line for the sake of space. And so the date honestly isn't that important to me, and also because I do track my expenses in my bank app as well. Like if I needed to find an actual date for something, I could easily go and retrieve it. But as far as in my bullet journal, I don't think I really need the date option all the time. So I decided to cut out the left side of the tracker and only keep 2 columns, one for description, one for amount. And this left the left side of the spread available for me to draw another chapel. So this one is a little differently shaped than the first one. On the first page, it has a bit of a taller, I don't know, is it a steeple? Like what do you call it when it's like that triangle roof? But instead of having like I need to learn like architectural words, but essentially this is a different shape than the first one. Okay. So I like, you know, trying new things, trying to draw different shapes, and I like how this particular chapel very well frames the left side, the bottom left side of this spread. And I also like the little circle of background. It doesn't cover the entire spread, you know, but the idea is there and the motif is still coming in from the first spread. And all of this leaves room for the expenses tracker on the right while also combining it with artwork. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier, where I like to mix my artwork with my productive stuff. So I like how everything is just kind of intertwined and mixed in this particular side of the spread. We also have the trackers at the very top that I'm going to fill in during the month. I only have 4 this month, but that's totally okay. Honestly, a lot of times it depends on just how much space I have in the spread for how many habits I track, because to be honest, I'm not doing too bad on my habits recently. I'm kind of, you know, actually making them habits. Shocker. So needing a tracker isn't always as necessary, but I still put them in there because I think it is important to keep yourself accountable for things. On the right side of the spread, I'm going to have a brain dump. Now, since it is December, technically I do still have classes, like I said, and usually during college, I will put academic planning in my bullet journal just to kind of get a monthly overview of all of the assignments, exams, and things like that I have to do for classes. However, like I said, only 1 week of classes and then I have exams, and that's it. So if I did do an academic planner, it would only be like 2 columns wide, and also I really don't need it. Like there are a lot of things that I already have done in ahead of time, and I can just put academic planning in the weekly spreads individually. So I decided to cut that out of this setup. I just didn't think it was necessary, and instead I'm doing a brain dump spread because December means Christmas, like we've brought up multiple times in this video, and so I need to plan, you know, my Christmas gifts for my family and friends, any secret Santas that my friends and I are doing. You know, I want to make sure that I have an entire space here to plan out all of that stuff, and if I need any other extra space for whatever reason in the month, I can always use this for that as well. Now, to be honest, as far as the actual spread goes, I do end up adding these like horizontal stripe lines like that I can write on in a light beige in the background of this like box section. I think that was a mistake. I much preferred it having it open and just plain, but I mean, it's a very small thing, not a huge deal. That's just one thing that I think that I would have changed about the setup if I had to go and do it again. But that being said, I overall really like the very light vibes. It's not minimal necessarily, but the coloring is super light. There is a lot of white space, a lot of negative space. The line art is very fine. There are, you know, little dainty snowflakes everywhere, little drops of snow. Anyway, I think that this really encapsulates the feelings that I want to feel in this December, and I'm really happy with how the entire setup turned out. So with that being said, we are finally here at the flip through. It's going to be a short flip through because there are only 2 spreads, but I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, subscribe to my channel because I post new bullet journaling videos every single Saturday. And like I said, my undated bullet journal is on sale for 30% off until December 2nd. So go check it out on my website. I love you guys so much, and I will see you next week.